Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go. Here you go.
Steinbrenner. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It's Friday, January 31st, 2025, and you have come across the award-winning Nothing Personal with David Samson podcast. And we're talking about Hal Steinbrenner. It's Friday. I was about to say we're talking about George Steinbrenner. We're talking about an owner who did something yesterday that I was pretty sure I would never see. And if you're a Yankee fan, or if you're an owner of a small market team, small payroll, mid payroll team, large payroll team, you're not going to believe your ears. Steinbrenner said, and we're going to talk about both parts of a decision he made to go public on that I question greatly. But the first thing he wants us to believe is that the Yankees are a better team this year than last year. And the reason he wants you to believe that is that he needs to get explaining to you why losing Juan Soto can somehow make you a better team, when in the history of baseball teams, very hard to overcome the loss of one of the best players in all of baseball. Of course, there is no guarantee that having the best player in the league on your team is going to get you to October, except Juan Soto did help his team get to October all the way to the World Series. So we then had Brian Cashman talk about why he thinks they're better. And Brian Cashman tried to buttress Hal's comments by telling you that you don't replace Juan Soto. This was his messaging. You don't replace him, but you can cushion the blow, he said, and diversify it throughout your roster. You can sign Max Fried. You can sign Devin Williams, have the best closer. You can sign and get deeper rotation by bringing in Max Fried. You can get Paul Goldschmidt. You can re-sign Jonathan Losania. You can do all those things. That is true. Then you can bring in Paul Goldschmidt, and you can say that collectively we're going to be better. You can bring in Bellinger. You can do all those things, but it forces you to say something about your team that you were never willing to say. And this was always a big quandary for me. If I talk about this year's team and talk about how much better it is than last year's team, but last year I talked about, my God, this is the team we're very comfortable with, and this is a really good team. Cashman was forced to say, we weren't very good defensively, so we wanted to get better. We wanted to help our pitching. We're able to spread the loss of Soto over more depth in our lineup. It is the oldest trick in the book when you talk about a team and when you lose your free agent. So Steinbrenner tells you we're better. He gets his baseball people to agree, and yet that wasn't the most unbelievable thing that he did yesterday. He was talking about the Dodgers and asked about the huge payroll disparity between the Dodgers and the rest of the league. And he was asked whether the Dodgers spending is good for baseball, because that has become more popular than any other question asked of any front office person right now in the offseason. That's the theme. When MLB Network or ESPN or Metalark, hey, what's going on in baseball? What's the theme? What do we want to go with? Dodgers spending. Let's see where people stand on how good it is for baseball. Reminder, the Dodgers have a payroll tax of $380+ million, more than 80 million higher than the second team. Think about Al Steinbrenner, the New York Yankees owner, and what he said about this. And when you're hearing it, I want you to think about what I used to say as president of the Marlins. It's difficult for most of us owners to be able to do the kind of things that they're doing. Steinbrenner said. Now we'll see if it pays off. They still have to have a season relatively injury-free for it to work out. And it's a long season, as you know. And once you get to the postseason, anything can happen. When did Hal Steinbrenner become the owner of a small payroll team? He's stealing from the playbook that I use. That's not his playbook. He's not allowed to tell you that, hey, just because these guys are spending money doesn't directly correlate to winning. And even if it did, once they get to the postseason, it doesn't mean that you're going to get a ring. And look at me, our franchise has 2 rings, including the last one only 22 years ago. It's mind-boggling that Steinbrenner and the Yankees, can you imagine for 1 second, and we talk about this, those of us who are a little older and have had relationships with George Steinbrenner, obviously friendship, you can't even call it a friendship. We worked with George Steinbrenner. George Steinbrenner, he embraced being the chased. He embraced the villain role. He embraced the Frank Sinatra, my way of operating a team. Did it lead him to do things that stopped the Yankees from winning for a few decades, and then they finally got good when, in theory, people say he gave up the ship to Joe Torre and Brian Cashman, and that led them to those World Series championships in 96 and 98, 99, 2000? Is that true? Separated by the Marlins in 97, by the way. Is that a thing? In the real world of baseball, Steinbrenner didn't become less involved, less meddling. He ended up having the right combination of players. He had a manager, Joe Torre, who would stand up to him in a non-combative way, the way Billy Martin used to do. And he had a GM who was a child, Brian Cashman, when he started, who was just so happy to be there that he basically said, I'm happy to become the lifetime GM of the Yankees. In return, you're the Steinbrenner. You're in charge. And I am not yucking on Cashman's yum. He's had an unbelievable career, a Hall of Fame career as a general manager. Just surviving in New York and with the Steinbrenner family for as long as he has is noteworthy, no question. But that doesn't mean that for 1 second we thought that Hal would become Samson. It's crazy to me. It's like everyone's chasing a ghost, the ghost of Andrew Friedman. Even when the Dodgers do something good, people tend to criticize, and I'm not sure where we've lost our finesse. Thank you, Mr. Giamatti. I just don't understand why the Dodgers can team up to donate $100 million. And there are people who want to talk about, oh, look, that's just another example of a rich person or a rich owner spending money because they've got more money. Our owners can't do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or don't do that. It's actually a fantastic story. Every team has a foundation, and you use that foundation to do good in your community. Every time you get public money, one of the things you do is promise to do good in your community. You promise to be a good partner. You promise to give back. For all that the community does for us, we're going to refurbish some baseball fields. We're going to give out turkeys during Thanksgiving. We're going to give out toys during Christmas to kids. Every team has a foundation. The Dodgers Foundation is funded, like other teams, through players who sign long-term contracts who all promise to donate 1% of their contract to their team's foundation. It's the oldest trick in the book to help fund your community obligations. Players need the tax break. They have so much W-2 income as highly paid free agents that they've got to give charitable money away. And so you say in your negotiation, by the way, we'll offer you 180 over 6 years, but we're getting a 1% rebate, but we won't take it in our pockets. We'll put the 1% into the team foundation. It's a win-win. It's a 501c3, which means it's a deductible situation for the player, and it's the team that obligates itself through its foundation for these expenses. Owners also donate into their own foundation because owners have income. Often the income is phantom income That is an accounting term. No need to get into it, but what phantom income is the worst kind of income. You have to pay taxes on money you don't actually have. If someone gives you a $10 bill and says, give me 5 back in taxes, you walk away with 5. If someone doesn't give you the $10 bill, but pretends that you have it and says, you sort of have that $10 bill, hey, give me 5 in taxes, and then you have to dig into your pocket to find the 5, that's called phantom income. So Dodgers and other teams put money into their foundation. The Dodgers Foundation is a huge foundation. And the fact that Mark Walter, the owner of the Dodgers, got together with his own foundation, with his team's foundation, they took Casey Wasserman, who is the chairman of LA 2028, and that's the least of what he's known for, if you know Casey. Then you put that together with Magic Johnson, and they gave $100 million. And they gave it to relief from the devastating wildfires that we saw in LA this month. It's actually an unbelievable gift. And I started thinking about that gift. We haven't talked much about the fires recently, but the devastation and the rehabilitation and the reality for people whose houses got burned down, who don't have another house and are basically homeless or living couch surfing at the moment, the nightmare is only starting. And people tend to give a lot of money to things when it starts and then it tails off, except the needs tend to get greater. My analogy I'll give you is when you've got a friend in need, let's say a family member passes away and you want to be helping to your friend, everybody's helpful right at the beginning. The way to differentiate yourself and really provide help is when everybody disappears like roaches when the lights go on, and all of a sudden the person is completely alone and devastated in their grief. Then go spend time and go visit. It's one of my funny secrets to the game we play, Would You Attend His Funeral? The answer is often no, but I would attend a lot of stuff during their life, number one. And number two, after the fact, I'd go back and be with the family. But I don't let being nice get in the way of a good bit. The comment by Casey Wasserman about this $100 million is pretty noteworthy. Talking about the $100 million, it's meant to jumpstart, and that's the quote, it's meant to jumpstart other people giving. Basically, about $8 million had been given to a relief fund, and obviously they've now made that number way bigger. And what they're trying to do is figure out how to rebuild LA. And Casey said, this process and this journey we're about to start with LA Rises, which is the name, is not about the next month or the next year. This is about what LA is going to look like for the next 50 or 100 years. And that really hammered home the point that for visionaries, you don't need a visionary to see tomorrow. You don't need a visionary to see next year. Visionaries are those that see way past when they will be able to see. Casey Wasserman, the likelihood of him being here in 100 years, I'd say is slight, though I'm never going to give up for Casey. I mean it, Casey. You and I hanging out at 150 is not the worst plan in the world. But the odds are that he is planting seeds for trees that he will not ever see the shade from, or the leaves or the flowers. I'm all in. I think it's outstanding. Let's get to a block here, Coca, that I want to get through because there's a lot of stories we have to get to. But I do want to get just to a couple of comments for you to hear, if that's okay. Number one, the Toronto Blue Jays continued their offseason. Didn't get as much press as when the Mets did. They signed Max Scherzer yesterday. Max Scherzer, who has been alive for 2 score, he just got $15.5 million to join a rotation with Berrios and Gausman, etc., in Toronto. And you saw what Toronto's doing. It is a crazy thing that when you are always the bridesmaid and never the bride, that you tend to change your expectations of who you're willing to sleep with / marry. Max Scherzer for $15.5 million. I cannot think of a greater waste of money. And coming from a guy who wasted money, giving one-year deal to guys for $8 million, it's now up to $15 with inflation. Max Scherzer is a great name. Great name. Max Scherzer is not the Cy Young Award-winning pitcher of a decade ago. He's not close. He's not a top 5 starter on any team. He is insurance at best. He is a path from the coach's room to the dugout and to the bullpen and to the mound. I'll give him that. He will bring it every day that he's there. I'll bring him that. But the minute he's hurt, he will disappear away from Toronto, and that'll be that. He is not the type who will say, oh, I'll keep coming to games and go on road trips. His shoulder will get hurt, elbow, something will happen, and he'll collect the 15.5 and then leave. All right. If you're the Blue Jays, you want to be able to have as many press conferences as possible, announcing as many player signs as possible, so you can tell your fans what Cashman told his fans, which is, we didn't get Ohtani, we didn't get Soto, we didn't get Fried, we didn't get the big guys, but look what we did do. Keep in mind, Max Scherzer's coming off a season where he started 9 games total for the Rangers of Texas. Nothing personal pick of the day. We are 10-12. We had the Grizzlies -5. They only won by 1. That would be a loss. We're only going to take one game this weekend. We're going to take the Warriors +1 over the Suns. This is a game in Golden State. Well, not really, but you know what I mean. It's a home game for the Warriors. This is a battle of 2 teams who want Jimmy Butler. Are there really 2 teams? You know, I'm going to end up being wrong, Coca, and I'm fine with it because I'm wrong plenty. As a matter of fact, I want corrections from you whenever you have a correction. Make sure you give them to me. You're going to trade for Jimmy Butler and you're going to say that your team got better? I'm just asking. Number 2, you're the Heat and you're going to trade Jimmy Butler because he's acting this way like a petulant child? Just keep suspending him. And if he does come back and behaves himself, sit him at the end of the bench. I don't know how many more times I need to say it. Pat Riley, you are not one who lowers your value in your mind because a player forces your hand. If you start treating your team and running your team that way, then who are you? You're Derek Jeter. You don't want to be that. Jimmy Butler joining Steph Curry. Come on. Warriors +1 over the Suns. You know, corrections come. We had a correction yesterday. I want to read this correction, Coca, because I got something wrong. If you go to davidsamsonpodcast.com and tell me I did something wrong, we're live. There's no prompter. This is just me talking to you, having prepped the show earlier with Coca. Good morning, David. I listen to your podcast Monday to Friday. Thank you. May I please correct some things that may seem petty but are important to me? If it's important to you and I got it wrong, it's important to me too. 1, it is not the Mormon Church. It's called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I totally knew that, and I just forgot it during the show, and I called it the Mormon Church, and I have no idea what we were talking about because I don't remember one show to the next, which is a weird thing. Coca will remind me what we've talked about. And so whatever we were talking about, I mislabeled the Mormon Church. And then this person who corrected me, thank you, says, I know that's a mouthful, so if you want, just say LDS, Latter-day Saints, the LDS Church. And side note, he said, the LDS Church has nothing to do with the Book of Mormon Broadway show. We do have a book of scripture that's called Book of Mormon, but LDS people live all over the world. And he went into a thing about how he respects me and I should respect him. And I agree. I'm sorry I got that wrong. Correction. All right, before we go to break, I want to spend 2 minutes on the Sports Podcast Awards. And I'm going to be going on Levitard here in less than an hour. It is 8:19 Eastern, 10:19 if you're watching on the DraftKings Network. And if you're listening to this, then I may have already been on Levitard if you're listening later in the day. And then you can listen to everything back to back or front to front. I asked you all to vote for Nothing Personal. Last year, we were the number 1, the first place baseball podcast. And this year we came in 3rd. I'm supposed to say what an honor it is to have been nominated because not all podcasts get nominated, but they still do nominate many finalists, let's say 8 in a category. So even to finish with what they call the bronze medal, third place should be an honor. And I must say 2 things, and they can both be true. I'm thankful to you for voting. I'm thankful to you for listening, to engaging with me and my show every single day, me and our show, 4869. But a bronze medal, I view it as a loss. I'm not celebrating it. I didn't even announce it on social media. I did announce the gold medal that I won for co-hosting the sporting class, which of course Pablo Torre took all the credit for. His was the only name listed. There is no sporting class without John Skipper and without me, but I don't want to make an issue of that because Pablo likes his awards. That said, please know, just please know that Coca, Sarah, and I appreciate you, your time, everything you do, the way you spread the word about Nothing Personal. The growth of our show is a story that very few shows get to enjoy, and we get to flex that growth on a pretty constant basis, and we don't take it for granted. So thank you. All right, I want to take an early break, Coca, because we've got a lot of stuff to get through after the break, stories that will require quite a bit of time. So let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll review the movie I watched and then start in with some of the other stories. Thanks. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. Let's get right into it. I finally watched, I'm obviously watching Oscar nominated movies. I finally got to Dune Part 2. And I did not love Dune Part 1. I appreciated it, but I didn't love it. So I would not have watched Dune Part 2 were it not to have been for all of its nominations. I readily admit that. So I sat down and I watched it over 2 sittings. I was distracted during each of the parts of the movie because of stuff I was doing for work and for this show. But I still really liked it. And I absolutely agree that it should have been nominated for Best Picture. Seeing Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya and Rebecca Ferguson, who doesn't love Rebecca Ferguson? Anytime you have Javier Bardem in a movie or Stellan Skarsgård, you just think to yourself, this is a cast that there's a chance under the direction of the great Villeneuve that this is going to be a memorable movie. And it was. And I didn't rewatch Dune Part 1 before watching Part 2, which some people told me I had to do. Thank you, not. I didn't have to do that. I don't remember any part of Dune Part 1 and didn't need it for Dune Part 2. 10 minutes in, I'm locked in as to who's doing what and figuring out whether or not Austin Butler will ever come to grips with being bald. That has nothing to do with Dune Part 1. You got to watch all 10 Best Picture nominees. You know you have to. Dune Part 2, worth it. Will I be voting for Dune Part 2 for Best Picture? Spoiler alert. NCTP, baby. No chance, toilet pants. Okay, we're going to take a serious topic now, and we're going to try to give it some perspective. And it was given to us by one of you.
You know what I want? I want to talk to Samson.
So you want to talk to Samson. Thank you for getting into my ex at David P. Samson or davidsamsonpodcast.com. However you can reach me. If you have a question that is interesting to me, it may make the air. David, Dana White excused Bryce Mitchell's comments on Hitler as free speech, though he went after Bryce. How would you handle this? Short, sweet, and to the point. Thanks for the question. Let me give you the background. Bryce Mitchell is a UFC fighter. He went on a podcast and he had some unbelievable things to say. Number one, he said, Hitler, great guy. 2, I'd go fishing with Hitler. 3, all he wanted to do was make his country more pure and more better by getting rid of all the Jews. Basically, this is how he wanted to start his podcast career, Bryce Mitchell. So he's like on the first episode of a show that he's allowed to do because of the platform and the ring that Dana White's given him. And I'm listening to these comments thinking to myself, all right, there's a lot going on in the Trump administration. There's no question about it. Trump is close to Dana White. I could use the transitive property of friendship, except I would never do that because there are plenty of things that people who I consider friends are doing that I wouldn't want myself to be associated with. And there's plenty of things I do that I'm sure my friends don't want to be associated with. If you're one of those people who can't be friends with someone who votes for Trump, or can't be friends with someone who doesn't vote for Trump, can't be friends with someone who doesn't share your world, political, geopolitical, socioeconomic point of view, then shame on you. But there's got to be some deal breakers. All of us have to have a line. I think my line is absolutely spot on because it's my line. If I had a friend who was sneaking around on me and on a Wednesday night of the second Wednesday of every month participated in a KKK rally, I'm not getting through that. If I had a friend who dressed up and acted as Hitler and wore swastikas, I'm not getting past that. If I had a friend who rooted for the Yankees, I'm getting past that. So we all have our line. Bryce Mitchell, in my opinion, crossed a line that no one should be allowed to cross. His friends shouldn't accept it. His family shouldn't accept it, however much all of them agree. Publicizing that point of view, that hatred, that prejudice, that racist behavior, we want to stop that from being modeled by impressionable kids who may have grown up with racist parents and think it's okay. We're trying to get those kids to talk to the non-racial people, non-racist people, so maybe we can break the chain. If I am Bryce Mitchell's employer, I'm firing Bryce Mitchell. Hard stop. I will not let myself be associated, however attenuated our association is. I will not allow myself to be swept in the same breath as someone who says that. Dana White held a press conference, and he was clear as day. He thought the speech was reprehensible. He thought Bryce Mitchell was an ignorant piece of crap. He was very clear on his view of Hitler, anti, very clear on his view of the Holocaust, anti, and I don't mean a non-Holocauster. I mean him saying the whole Holocaust was bad, killing 6 million Jews bad. He then went through the stats of all of the nightmare that Hitler was responsible for. And then he was asked the $64,000 question, are you going to punish Bryce Mitchell? David Samson running UFC, I'm not punishing Bryce Mitchell. I'm firing Bryce Mitchell. And I'm still pro free speech. Dana White says in response, it's free speech. That's the beautiful thing about this business. For all of you who hate Bryce Mitchell, you get to see him hopefully get his ass whooped on global television. Talk about someone who's all about business, and I'm good with that. It's just business guy. But there are lines that I won't permit for any of my employees to cross. Doesn't matter who they are. It didn't matter if you're the best player on the team. You're allowed to cross a lot of lines that other players don't cross. Certain lines are called the third rail. Does Dana White not realize that he's in the middle of a 5-year, $1.5 billion TV deal with ESPN? Does he not realize that all Disney had to do was get together and say, hey, Dana, by the way, we're not re-upping when your deal expires this year because we don't want to be associated with that? Think Dana would change his public tune? Do you think Dana was smart enough to call ESPN, who's likely bidding to extend their rights? Do you think that He was smart enough to call in advance and say, hey, this is going to be my take. I know you're not going to get involved in who I hire and who I don't fire, but as my partner, I just wanted you to know. And do you think the people from Disney answered that phone and said, oh, Dana, whatever you want. We believe in you. We trust in your judgment. Look at your brilliance. We are just excited to pay you money to be associated with the brilliance that you bring. Or do you believe, as I do, that Dana White never consulted Disney, never felt that he needed to speak to his partners because in his mind, his comments are not controversial at all? When you can dismiss everything as, hey, free speech. Now, of course, he doesn't have the law exactly right because not all free speech is protected, but let's not quibble. I am a big fan of allowing people to say things that make me physically ill. They've got that right. I have the right to say my truth. Other people have the right to say their truth. I think we're a better world when we actually have an entity that judges people's truths. And I wanted to make the point super clear because many of you in the audience are going to disagree, which I'm totally fine with. I want you to take your own opinion and value your own opinion and fight for your own opinion while not from 8 to 8:50. Anytime the other 22 hours, but not our 50 minutes. I don't believe that it is my responsibility to help you define what I view as hate speech or to help you understand that there's certain things that when people say, no matter what, it's not okay. If you want me to make the list, I'll make the list. But racism, sexism, misogynistic behavior, anything around those topics, you got to watch yourself. Do you think Disney will actually do anything when already the UFC's been involved with sexual assault cases and no one cared? Domestic abuse, we're good. Drug offenses, no problem. We just want our guys to get the crap kicked out of each other in the ring. We don't care if they're on drugs off the ring. We don't care if they're with 10 different women. No problem. We don't care if they hit women. We don't care if they assault women. By the way, added to the list, we don't care about hate speech. Whatever you want to say about the Jews, no problem. Whatever you want to say about Hitler, we're in. We are all about you. Because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strikes. You're still not out in the UFC game. For those of you who love Dana White, I've not met Dana White. I'm not impugning Dana White as a father, as a husband. You know, videos beware. None of us want to be defined by our worst moment. I can promise you that. Of course, never raise a hand to your wife or significant other, ever. That seems like an easy one to me, Coca. I don't know why I keep getting it wrong. You don't force yourself on someone sexually. You don't hit your partner physically and restrain them or touch them in an inappropriate way. You are respectful and live and let live to your fellow people. What is wrong with those as a set of rules? What am I missing? Are we more productive as a society because of the hate? Is there more business for UFC because they get to provide a platform to spew that level of ignorance and hatred and just horrific racism? It should be. It should be my number one. I should play it every show. It's just business. Sorry, Jews, this is nothing personal. I should play that, but I can't at 8:34. I, David Samson, choose business. I choose profit, money. I define success in ways that you may not agree with, but I can show you over the course of my career. I wouldn't trade my life for anyone's. I love my life. I love the people in my life. I love my family. I love my friend. So once in a while, I'm so fortunate to get to do this and get paid to do it every day. But guess what? I won't do it, Coca. I won't do it. I won't sell out my business principles to further promulgate that type of behavior. And the fact that Dana White did, I just find upsetting. And the fact that Disney will just keep paying for it, I find depressing. Wouldn't it be amazing if ESPN or Disney or Bob Iger called up Dana White and said, listen, you go somewhere else, but we're not televising your product that you're so willing to associate with the types of things that we don't want to associate with. Now, I understand about stock price, but even Adidas walked away from Kanye. Cost him dearly. And I think they may even be back with him. Man, it really is just about business, isn't it? When you run a team, there are things that are just about business, for sure. And sometimes you're forced to do something that is hard, difficult to do. 4-7-24. Sometimes you are forced to make decisions when you run a team that are very difficult to do, that are wrought with emotion. Sometimes it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Baby, you and me. Justin Tucker. Do you know that name? If you're not paying attention, Justin Tucker is maybe the top 5, Coca, greatest kicker of all time. Plays for the Ravens. He had a pretty bad season this year. We actually had to wait to see that Tucker would win a football game with his leg before the season was through. That did not happen. That's a no on that wait to see. Yesterday, we got word that Justin Tucker has been accused by several massage therapists, 6 to be exact, who all had very troubling interactions with Mr. Tucker during the course of his massages. A couple of things I'd like to make clear before we go forward. No one by accident brushes their penis against a woman. That's number 1. Number 2. No one by accident is all of a sudden naked and not under the sheets. Massage parlors, spas, they don't have a wind chill factor. There are moments when your hat can fly off, for sure, but you're going to be outside walking and there's going to be a big gust of wind. You're not lying there getting a massage. Justin Tucker's representatives, by the way, when this report came out yesterday in Baltimore, wanted to let you all know, in case you weren't paying attention, that athletes are really different people. It's hard to imagine him trying to explain why it's possible that Justin Tucker's sheets came off to show his erection, because athletes are different. They've got body problems, they've got physical issues, and it causes them to move in ways while they're being massaged because it can hurt so much that the sheet would just fly off. Oh, that hurt. Oh, God, I can't believe the sheet's gone. I've gotten plenty of sports massages in my time, and I hate them because they hurt so badly. I'd rather not even get them. No matter how much pain I'm in, no matter how much gyrating I do, because I can't believe how badly my hamstring or quads feel or calves feel or lower back feels. Here's what doesn't happen. Prior to an agreement, a bilateral, fully formed agreement, the sheets don't fly off, showing that your aroused state. Now listen, Deshaun Watson was charged and was accused of way worse than what Justin Tucker is. Justin Tucker is not being accused of sexual assault at all. He's been accused of inappropriate touching during therapy sessions. He's been accused of pleasuring himself in a massage bed when the massage therapists were not there, but not being accused of what Deshaun Watson was accused of, which was assaulting and forcibly penetrating these women. The strange thing about the Justin Tucker allegations is they came to the attention of this paper, The Banner in Baltimore, only a couple of weeks ago, like on January 9th. And they came out and did not much investigation, but they managed to speak to 6 therapists, a bunch of people who said Tucker was fine, a bunch of people who said Tucker's been a problem since the beginning of time. They got both sides to everything. They presented this article, and people, it's obviously a huge story, but the question that everybody's asking is Tucker Watson. As a consequentialist, as a person running the Ravens, that's not the question I'm asking myself. I'm looking at Tucker in the last year of his long-term deal. I'm looking at the dead cap hit that I'll take by releasing Tucker. I'm looking at Tucker's performance, and I'm saying, you know what? The juice is not worth the squeeze. Goodbye, Justin Tucker. I'm sorry it had to end like this. If Justin Tucker were in his prime as a kicker, the Ravens would come out and make it clear that they'll be investigating, which the Ravens will have a statement, of course, and they did. The NFL will have a statement, of course, and they did. You, as a listener to Nothing Personal, can tell me what the statements were. The Ravens, say it with me, we take any allegations of this nature seriously and will continue to monitor the situation. I mean, that's page 2 of the playbook of what the team says. We take this very seriously. I'm sure they're spending every waking minute thinking about these allegations and the fact that these women have been traumatized. Every waking minute, the Ravens are focused on that. Monitor. We're going to monitor it. I liked when I said, we're going to closely follow this situation and we'll be back to you. We're going to monitor. Now, does that mean we're going to get monitors and cameras? Are we going to hire people? We're going to do nothing but monitor the courts to see if there are any filings? That seems like a waste. But if you have an extra $65,000, there's plenty of people who would do that job. No overtime required. 9 to 5. I'm going to monitor the Tucker situation, see if any articles come out, and I'm going to give a report to my team president. Anytime I'm going to aggregate all the different articles. I'm going to see which way the wind is blowing about Justin Tucker. Give me a break. The good news is the NFL is, quote, looking into the matter. Phew. Wouldn't want to think they weren't. Samson and Coco will get, maybe our phone is going to ring, that we'll have to do an investigation into Justin Tucker's behavior. But if you're the Ravens, the fact that it's not the same set of facts as Watson is not relevant to me. I'm releasing him. Period. It is okay that his agent said that he's never behaved inappropriately. He had lawyers come out and say it, that he was perfectly behaved during all massage therapy sessions. Yet all these therapists who don't know each other all had the same corroborating story. Suspicious? Real? Stranger than fiction? Doesn't matter. Justin Tucker has no choice. He released a lengthy statement. Never a good idea when you're accused of something like this to rush to a statement that you then have to correct later. You then have to say, oh, I didn't exactly mean it that way. I've always made a conscious effort to be considerate and respectful in all the interactions with the community that I love so much. Is he talking about the massage community? Is he talking about the Baltimore community? Hard to know. We're all a community. Maybe he's talking about the media community. It's devastating for me to learn that anyone would feel I was offensive in any way. I'm glad the lawyers had him do a statement like that. I find it to be completely useless. As a matter of fact, Coca, I'm not even ashamed to do this. I'm going to give you an official wait to see on Justin Tucker. He's not going to be on the Ravens next year. And I know, Coca, we didn't even talk about this before the show. We were so busy with the other subjects. Do you believe that he's going to be on the Ravens? Like, do you think the Ravens will just get past this and not care at all? Where I'm saying that the Ravens are going to jettison him? Do you have a view on that? I'm not even sure. I think Coca's weekend already started. Hello? Anybody there? Hold on. Matthew Coca. You're talking to an award-winning host of a show, and it's just me talking into the abyss. I don't even have a producer in my ear. I'm actually worried about him. He's not even writing on our document. He may be just gone. Did he resign? Well, wait, I'm going to go on to the next topic right now, just so you know. Wait to see Tucker not on the Ravens next season. That's official. My friend Jared Diamond released a story yesterday. Wall Street Journal, if you don't have it, it's been aggregated everywhere so you can get the gist of it, but then you're sort of screwing the guy at the Wall Street Journal, although you have to be a subscriber. But it's an amazing newspaper if you want to learn something. Out came the news that there are more investigations happening federally into organized crime game fixing. You know what I'm talking about. Do you remember Jonte Porter? Do you remember the former NBA player who's not in the NBA anymore because he took himself out of a game and bet on the under for his own personal props? Remember that Jonte Porter? The one who's banned from the league for life? That Jonte Porter? Did you think that there were not institutions, groups, and individuals who continue to study and learn about what other players may be compromised? One of the best things about making gambling legal, one of the best things about the technology that a DraftKings has, obviously they're a sponsor, but you've heard me say this way before DraftKings took an interest in Nothing Personal. The fact that DraftKings and its competitors have the ability to see when something looks off. We never used to know. Why is it that there's so many people going to so many different casinos to lay a bet like this? And by the way, all the bookies get together. Do you think Sebastian says to Leroy, hey, I just got $100,000 action on Terry Rozier and the under in his props? None of them are communicating. But now with legalized gambling, there's full communication, full transparency. The downside is we're about to expose that which has happened and happened since the beginning of time, and it's still happening. When Terry Rozier was on the New Orleans, he was playing against the Pelicans. Remember, he used to be on Charlotte. He played on the Charlotte Hornets. There is some thought that in March of 2023, this is not long ago, this is 2 years ago, he took himself out of a game doing the Jonte, is what we're going to call it. He ended up only scoring 5 points. He played for a bit and then removed himself. And the under props, which had an unusual amount of action that particular day, hit. The NBA had to come out with a statement that was very clear that the NBA was alerted to the unusual betting activity relating to Terry Rozier's performance. The league conducted an investigation and did not find a violation of NBA rules. So what the league is saying is, we heard about it when it happened, which is exactly how it's supposed to work. We investigated it and we found nothing. The problem is now the U.S. attorney is investigating the things that the NBA said we took care of because there's nothing to see here. Can you imagine if the U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of New York is investigating all of these things, all of the weird movements in lines and all the weird things the players can do sometimes, or executives, and then all of a sudden comes out and says that the events of March of 2023, that was a problem, that was fixed in his benefit because he had a problem the way Jonte Porter did, or he owed money the way Jonte Porter did, or needed to get money the way Jonte Porter did? Then all of a sudden the NBA and its processes look terrible. Do I think the NBA wants to bring as much weight to bear as it can to the U.S. Attorney's Office and say, hey, whatever you find here, don't find it for something that we already investigated? I don't believe the NBA will be able to stop this train from rolling because it's a really important train to the NBA and to the gambling companies and to all of the customers. Your belief that the players are giving you an equal opportunity to win your bet, and the reason you lose is because you listen to the wrong people or have the wrong gut instincts or don't analyze the game correctly, or it's just sports. That risk we're all willing to take. The risk of betting into something that's fixed, none of us are willing to take that. The NBA wants to make sure that they know that everything's on the up and up. But now their investigations are being impugned by an investigation done by a greater force with greater power, the U.S. attorney. The result of that is going to be extremely telling to me. I would suggest that all of you, when you're reading the story, that you are calm in your application of this across all of sports. It's the same thing we say about the police. There are police who do something wrong. It doesn't mean every policeman's bad. There are players who do things that are wrong. It doesn't mean every player's bad. There are shows that you don't like. It doesn't mean every show is bad. There are people who take care of business who you don't like, but some of them you may have some affinity to. And you may give them 50 minutes of your time every day in return for a bronze medal. It's just business. Have a great weekend. Be safe. We'll see you Monday. This is nothing personal.